If you're diving into Arc Raiders, sooner or later you're going to run into that one player who thinks your backpack is their personal loot box. It doesn't matter if you're out there grinding quests, tinkering with your stations, or just vibing while shooting down ARC units. Someone, somewhere, is going to try to ruin your day. And honestly, that's part of the fun. PvP isn't optional in this world. It's a survival skill. That's why you can't rely on whatever random gun you grabbed off the ground. You need at least one weapon that actually slaps in PvP, something that can melt another raider before they even realize you're there. So in this video, we're breaking down the best PvP weapons in Arc Raiders with our official tier list, helping you pick the guns that give you a fighting chance instead of a fast trip back to the respawn screen. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking PvP weapons in Arc Raiders. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The PvP weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Hairpin and Hullcracker. I swear, every time I pick up the Hairpin, I feel like I am signing up for a challenge run I never asked for. The weapon has that "I used to be cool" energy, like it is desperately trying to remind us of the stealth games we grew up with. Yes, it is a silenced pistol, and yes, it looks like it could belong in a secret agent briefcase. But the moment you pull the trigger and wait a sentry for the next shot, reality hits hard. The damage is not even close to making up for the painfully slow fire rate. If you are really craving a quiet approach, placing a silencer attachment on a Beretta gives you a far more respectable performance. The Hairpin is basically the weapon equivalent of saying, "Trust me, bro," and then letting you down immediately. Now let us talk about the Hullcracker, also known as the biggest identity crisis in the entire game. In player versus environment, this thing is an absolute monster. It deletes almost every automated remote combat unit in sight without even trying. It is like the developer said, let us give players a tool that erases robots from existence, and then forgot to make it even remotely usable against actual human opponents. Take it into player versus player combat, and suddenly it feels like your grenades are filled with confetti and disappointment. It might be the only weapon in Arc Raiders that feels like it is actively apologizing for being fired. Trying to use the Hullcracker against a real player is kind of like trying to swat a fly with a sofa. Technically possible, theoretically impressive, but in reality, you will only embarrass yourself. The blast radius feels wrong, the impact is laughable, and the reload rhythm screams, "Use me only if everything else in your inventory has broken in half." Meanwhile, every opponent you meet is running around with actual damaging weapons, and you are over here lobbing foam balls like you are hosting a children's birthday party. So yeah, if you ever catch yourself in player versus player with either of these two weapons, consider it the universe giving you a gentle nudge to rethink your life choices. The Hairpin is only useful if you want to prove to your friends you can win with literal disadvantage, and the Hullcracker is best kept strictly for blasting mechanical enemies. Use them in the wrong mode, and you might as well charge into battle swinging your melee axe like it is 1999. At least the axe does damage. The PvP weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Rattler and Arpeggio. You ever pick up a weapon and immediately feel like it is testing your patience? That is pretty much the entire personality of the Rattler. On paper, it looks solid, respectable damage, surprisingly nice range, and stability that makes you think, okay, maybe this is going somewhere. And then you look at the magazine size and realize you are holding a 10-round disappointment machine. 10 bullets is barely enough to scare an opponent, let alone crack through their shield before you hear that sad little click, signaling you are out of ammo. The worst part is that the Rattler refuses to give you any shortcut to fix this flaw. There is no additional attachment, no special modification, no clever trick, just pure upgrading. You want a bigger magazine? You better start farming materials like it is your full-time job. And sure, if you throw half your life savings into leveling this thing, it gets shockingly good. It can even creep into the A-tier conversation. But in its basic form, it sits comfortably in the C-tier lounge, sipping water and trying its best. Now let us jump over to the Arpeggio, a weapon that seems determined to win you over with charm alone. This burst rifle shows up with everything neatly polished, excellent range, recoil you can control with a single finger, a fire rate that feels smooth, and a reload speed that does not actively punish you. But then it fires and you quickly discover the truth. The damage output is about as threatening as a foam dart. Each burst sounds confident, but the impact is like gently tapping your opponent on the shoulder, and asking if they could please fall over. Honestly, every time I use the arpeggio, I feel like it is trying to inspire the enemy rather than defeat them. The damage per second simply refuses to show up, no matter how clean the rest of the weapon feels. It is reliable, it is comfortable, but it just does not deliver the punch you need in player versus player combat. When given the choice, I would take almost anything else over it, because the arpeggio is the definition of good vibes, bad results. The PvP weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Pharaoh, Patina, Equalizer, Osprey, and Volcano. There are some weapons in Arc Raiders that feel like they are one tiny upgrade away from greatness, and the Pharaoh is absolutely one of them. This rifle fires a single shot at a time, but that single shot hits like a truck made entirely of bad decisions. The accuracy is razor sharp, the stability is almost perfect, and if you can actually land your shots, you can wipe out a light shield in a single round. It is cheap, it is powerful, and it is fantastic for players who do not panic the second someone gets close. But of course, nothing is perfect, and the Pharaoh loves to remind you of that with its painfully slow firing rhythm. That single fire design can feel clunky, especially when the battlefield gets chaotic and you suddenly need to react faster than your gun will let you. It is strong and reliable, but when compared to weapons like the Renegade or the Anvil, it starts to look like the good option rather than the best option. The Patina, on the other hand, is the textbook definition of, yeah, it works. This assault rifle uses heavy ammunition, hits pretty hard, and stays nicely controllable even during long bursts. On paper, it seems like the kind of weapon you could trust in almost any fight. It has that dependable lunch pail worker vibe that says, I will not let you down. But the reality is that the Patina just gets overshadowed by flashier, stronger, more specialized rifles. It is not bad, far from it. It is just that when you look at your player versus player loadout and think, what gives me the best chance to win? The Patina is rarely the first answer. It also eats up a noticeable amount of backpack space since heavy ammunition stacks poorly, which can make your overall kit feel a bit cramped. Now, let us talk about the Equalizer, a weapon that confuses me every time I find it. This thing fires a continuous beam that melts shields like butter on a summer day. If your enemy relies on defenses, the Equalizer will erase them almost instantly, and that part feels fantastic. For dealing with automated remote combat units, it is a dream come true. However, for dealing actual health damage to enemy players, not so much. Once the shields are gone, the Equalizer feels like someone turned the power down to half strength. And the bright white beam does you no favors, since it lights up the entire map like a spotlight pointing straight back to your hiding spot. You can absolutely make it work, but there are simply better tools for taking out raiders. Then we have the Osprey, the bolt-action sniper rifle that makes every player feel like a professional marksman for at least 3 seconds. There is something undeniably satisfying about lining up a shot from high ground and delivering clean, heavy damage. When used properly, the Osprey can take over a fight before the enemy even knows where you are. The problem is that it is incredibly specialized. If someone gets too close, you are basically done. Scoping in before every shot slows you down at the worst possible moments. And unless your aim is consistently excellent, you will find yourself stuck in situations the Osprey cannot save you from. It is not a bad weapon, it just needs the right player and the right environment. Finally, we arrive at the Volcano, a weapon that makes me want to pat it on the back and say, you are trying your best, buddy. This semi-automatic shotgun can definitely put out some serious hurt, and once you upgrade it a bit, it becomes a more threatening option than people give it credit for. It is not weak, it is not useless, it just needs love. But here is the problem. The Il Toro exists, and the Il Toro does everything the Volcano tries to do, but better, faster, and more efficiently. The Volcano can still work in player versus player battles, especially for players who are comfortable pumping multiple rounds into a target before the kill finally lands. Just do not expect it to compete with the top-tier shotguns without serious investment. The PvP weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Kettle, Aphelion, Jupiter, Berletta, Bobcat, and Torrente. There is something incredibly satisfying about stumbling onto a cheap weapon that punches way above its price tag, and the Kettle embodies that feeling perfectly. This single-fire assault rifle acts like the closest thing Arc Raiders has to a designated marksman rifle, and it thrives in close and medium-range engagements. The deliberate pacing of each shot makes it surprisingly easy to control, letting you land accurate, heavy-hitting rounds without fighting the recoil. What really pushes the kettle into the A tier is how accessible it is. Just like the Stitcher, it costs almost nothing to craft or purchase, making it the perfect pick for players who want to jump into player versus player combat without worrying about losing their life savings. It is simple, reliable, and hits a sweet spot that many other rifles miss entirely. Now let us talk about the Aphelion, a weapon that makes every encounter feel like you are holding a miniature thunderstorm in your hands. Technically speaking, it is Arc Raider's best long-range weapon because it fires a colossal bolt of energy whose power scales with the amount of time you spend charging it. A fully charged shot can obliterate someone before they even know what happened, and that alone is enough to place it in very high territory. However, the charge mechanic is also the Aphelion's biggest weakness. In calm moments or ambush situations, the weapon feels godlike. But the second chaos breaks out, that charge time becomes a liability. When the fight chooses you instead of the other way around, the Aphelion struggles to keep up. It is devastating, but not consistently enough to dethrone more flexible, long-range options. Speaking of charge-up weapons, the Jupiter follows a similar philosophy with its own unique flavor. This rifle deals extremely high damage, offers excellent accuracy, and rewards patient players who can hold their fire until just the right moment. When you land a shot with it, the impact feels incredible. But everything comes with a cost. The Jupiter's shots require charging, and the bright indicator that appears during that process is basically a neon sign pointing directly at your forehead. Enemies instantly know where you are and can react before you even pull the trigger. Combine that with a slow reload speed, and you get a weapon that is powerful on paper but risky in practice, especially when pressure hits you from close range. The Beretta pistol, on the other hand, takes the opposite approach. It thrives in chaos. This little monster is fantastic in close quarters thanks to its strong fire rate, respectable accuracy, and surprisingly smooth recoil control. Within 10 meters, the Beretta can shred an opponent before they even realize you have drawn your pistol. The only downside is that the Beretta feels like a flower waiting to bloom. It is perfectly usable at level 1, but it transforms into something incredible once you add attachments like a larger magazine or a faster reload. The base weapon is good, but the fully upgraded version is a miniature demon. The Bobcat shares that same good now, great later energy. What sets it apart is its absolutely wild fire rate. This gun empties its entire magazine so quickly that if you blink, you might miss your own shots. It excels in extremely close range encounters, where speed and aggression matter more than precision. Of course, the Bobcat is also held back by that same strength, because the fast fire rate means you run out of ammunition almost instantly. In extended fights, it loses steam quickly, but once you upgrade the magazine, the Bobcat becomes far more practical and far more deadly, giving you the freedom to spray down enemies without immediately hitting empty. Then there is the Torrente, a weapon I think surprises a lot of people the first time they use it. At a glance, it looks unstable, chaotic, and maybe even a little sloppy. But the moment you unleash its ridiculous fire rate on someone up close, you realize exactly what it is capable of. The Torrente does not nibble at enemies. It absolutely devours them. Its biggest weakness is everything outside of close range. The accuracy drops, the control suffers, and the effectiveness plummets the farther away your target is. But that is not what the Torrente is built for. This gun specializes in overwhelming opponents with raw volume, suppressing anyone who dares peek from cover, and turning 5-meter engagements into instant nightmares. It fills its niche perfectly. So yes, the A tier in Arc Raiders is full of weapons that excel when used in the right situation. Some require planning, others require upgrades, and a few need you to embrace pure chaos. But each of them earns their place by bringing something undeniably powerful and undeniably fun to the battlefield. The PvP weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Venator, Renegade, Il Toro, Anvil, Sticker, and Tempest. The moment you enter Arc Raiders player versus player chaos, there is a certain weapon name you keep hearing whispered like a legend, the Venator. And honestly, it deserves every bit of that reputation. This rifle delivers extremely high damage with laser-sharp accuracy, giving you the power to delete a player before they even realize they have been marked. Even with only 10 rounds available in the base version, those 10 are more than enough if your aim is on point. What makes the Venator truly terrifying is how quickly it ends fights. You do not need fancy upgrades or specialized attachments. You just aim, fire, and watch health bars melt away. It is clean, brutal, and efficient. No unnecessary flair, just pure results. And in player versus player combat, that level of reliability is priceless. Now let us talk about the Renegade, which might be the single most satisfying long-range weapon in the entire game. This rifle turns precision into a superpower. A light shield player will crumble after 4 clean headshots, which makes this gun unbelievably dangerous in the hands of anyone who likes to keep their distance. You can poke, pressure, and eliminate without ever taking a step forward. A huge part of the Renegade's charm is its reload system. Reloading 1 bullet at a time might sound slow, but it gives you the freedom to interrupt the animation and instantly fire again. That means you are never stuck in a full reload when something unexpected happens. It is flexible, tactical, and an absolute menace on open terrain. Then we have Il Toro, the shotgun that has ruined friendships, careers, and the sanity of anyone who has walked into a corner without checking it first. This beast hits with the force of a runaway truck, delivering massive damage even at surprisingly long ranges. For a scattergun, its consistency is unbelievable, and that is why it dominates close-quarters maps like Stella Montis. What makes Il Toro so powerful is how well it handles peak fighting. You slide out, take your shot, disappear behind cover, and repeat. It is fast, oppressive, and lethal. If you hear the distinct thump of an Il Toro nearby, there is a good chance you are already too late. Next up is the Tempest, the first epic tier weapon in this ranking, and undeniably the king of assault rifles. Stability, range, and damage all meet perfectly here, creating an assault rifle that feels smooth and deadly in equal measure. Within 10 to 20 meters, the Tempest absolutely shreds opponents in an instant. But you must respect its appetite. The Tempest devours ammunition like it has a personal vendetta against your backpack. If you go into a match without several stacks of ammunition, you might win a fight only to realize you have nothing left for the next one. With proper preparation, though, this rifle is frighteningly consistent. The Anvil, on the other hand, brings raw personality to the S tier. This hand cannon fires slowly, but every shot feels like you are launching a meteor. The damage is outrageous, the accuracy is shockingly good, and the range is much better than a pistol has any right to be. When you land shots with the Anvil, it feels like the world pauses for a second. The best part is how agile it feels. Despite being a heavy-hitting weapon, it lets you move quickly, reposition easily, and punish enemies who dare peek from behind cover. If you can hit your shots, the Anvil makes you feel like the most dangerous raider on the field. Finally, there is the Stitcher, the humble submachine gun that refuses to accept limitations. This thing absolutely tears through anyone who steps into close range. With a high fire rate, strong damage output, and recoil that is surprisingly easy to manage, it is the perfect weapon for frantic brawls inside buildings or tight corridors. What makes it even better is how absurdly cheap it is. You can buy it, craft it, replace it, lose it, and repeat without ever feeling the sting in your wallet. For new players, the Stitcher is the perfect starter weapon. For veterans, it is a trustworthy backup that never fails in close quarters. So when we talk about S-tier weapons in Arc Raiders, we are talking about tools that shape the entire flow of player versus player combat. These guns hit harder, aim smoother, reload smarter, and dominate more reliably than anything else in the game. They are not just strong, they are meta-defining. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.